In today's video, I will be continuing my quest to build a smaller scale city by shrinking the LEGO Bookshop and adding another 3 new builds to my cityscape. If you're new to my channel, I've been slowly creating smaller scale buildings by either shrinking pre-existing LEGO sets that I love or creating custom builds of my own. Initially, the goal of this smaller city was to not only be able to fit into our small apartment, but also learn build techniques from the modular sets I was attempting to shrink. However, even though we live in a larger space now and I have room for a larger city, I still want to keep going at this scale. Smaller buildings in more space means more buildings, more build techniques to learn, and even more custom builds. If you're interested in these types of videos, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any in the future. Before we dive straight into the bookstore and the new builds, since it's been so long since I've done a LEGO City update, let's go through what we're already working with. First up, we have the Daily Bugle, my first and tallest building that still pays homage to the original build's play features and even has an accompanying newsstand and taxi. I've since placed a 16x16 on a 16x32 plate to create a small alley where I've placed the Target exclusive coffee and donut cart from a few years ago. Next up, we have the corner garage. This was a huge challenge for me because of the angle and corner shape of the building. I'm quite happy with how this came out and even love the shrunken tow truck as well. After the corner garage, I shrunk the police station. This is on the relatively newer end of LEGO modulars, and it's where the LEGO group really started to play with the depth of plane and offered us smaller side buildings in bright, colorful shades. I wanted to keep the integrity of the set and therefore made incredibly narrow side buildings to keep the buildings to scale. Another option would have been to keep the original police station building as is since it's 16 wide and make the side buildings independent. Next, I tried something a little different and shrunk down and closed off the back of the LEGO Up House. This was fun for a few reasons, one of which being that I'm a huge Disney fan, if you couldn't tell from the Funko Pops behind me. After the Up House, I started dabbling a little more with custom builds and took inspiration from a LEGO City set and built the Sardine factory in a relatively short amount of time to display at Brickworld Chicago. Finally, I took 3 of the 3-in-1 noodle shops and combined them to make this build. This is my least favorite build and something I will definitely be revisiting in the future. Anyway, now that we have the bases covered, let's dive into the shrunken modular. The bookshop is an iconic modular building. It was really where LEGO started to incorporate bolder colors. I gravitated towards shrinking this one next because it's comprised of 2 separate buildings. Since the original build consists of a 16x32 bookstore and a 16x32 townhouse, I wanted to split that up and build each building 8 studs wide and 16 studs long. Let's take a look at the defining features of the bookshop itself first. What stands out to me right away is the birch book sign and the light bluish gray detail work around the entry, the roofline, and on the outside edge. These are called coins. Additionally, the dark red sloped roof and the window pattern should be relatively maintained. Now, let's look at the defining features I know I want to keep of the townhouse. As someone who lived over 10 years in San Francisco, this one has a special place in my heart. The bay windows are not only iconic in San Francisco, but required by planning, actually. Therefore, I know I need to keep the bay window in my smaller version. Additionally, I want to attempt to maintain the stairs up to the front door and the triangular window hoods. I am not a fan of the original tree, therefore I will not be including it in this shrunken version. And finally, after quite a bit of trial and error, I was able to build 2 independent buildings that are 8x16. There are some pretty significant compromises that had to be made. However, I was able to surprise myself a little bit with what I was able to keep. The bookshop is so thin and narrow at this scale, but I still really like how it turned out. On the exterior, I was able to keep almost everything I had intended while also still having the light over the main entrance and the small window all the way on the 3rd floor. I was even able to do quite a bit on the interiors. On the 1st floor, I completely shrunk down the original staircase. Even though this new design is a bit more parts heavy with more rare and newer parts, I think it works for the new scale. I haven't always been able to keep the staircases in my previous modulars that I've shrunk, but this one was able to fit along with a few more items of furniture as well. The row house or townhouse, if you will, was significantly more challenging. If you notice, I had to eliminate the front door at the cost of keeping the bay window. This is something I'm not 100% happy with, but will hopefully revisit later. What I'm happy with is the staircase. In the original build, this is already quite an ingenious build technique that I just followed at a smaller scale. It was harder than expected to keep the window likeness while also sliding in a few slivers of the roof so that the contrast between the dark blue roof and the dark turquoise could remain. I was able to keep a few interiors as well in the row house, but I'm certainly more pleased with the exterior. Overall, I really like the sizes of these 8 wide buildings. They work really well at the scale. After placing the bookshop and the row house in my city, I knew I wanted to keep going and add a few more builds. Monkie Kid is one of our favorite themes. The sets are bright and colorful with amazing build techniques and unique pieces and colors. We've been longtime collectors and lovers of the tiny buildings that have come in these sets. I've plans to take influence and incorporate these builds into my city and decided to start off with a couple of the older sets. I'm also at the point in my city where I want to begin laying out the buildings for the opposite side of the street. My goal is to make this side of the street a little bit shorter so we can still see the buildings on the other side. Additionally, I want both sides to be street facing, meaning both the front and the back of the 16 by 16 plate should be a building front. This new rule I've applied is actually perfect for the size of the Monkie Kid side buildings. Here, I've placed them back to back and enclosed the gaps to close off the building. Moving a few elements around and adding a few more pieces, I'm really happy with how this turned out. This has me really excited to fold in some of the newer sets that I've accumulated. To counter all the buildings and incorporate some green elements into the city, I decided it was time to add in a park. I've had a few ideas of how I wanted to go about it, but I eventually decided to make it 16 by 48, essentially 3 base plates at my city's little scale. I created a tile pattern where the main sidewalk pattern ever so slightly changed from light bluish gray to black, signifying a walking path in a different area. I have 3 planter boxes built up using masonry bricks and tiles, 2 of which are mirrored across the center line of the park, while the third is centered. I decided to create 2 different trees using 2 different build techniques. I'm really happy with how they both turned out, as well as the variety of plant work that I've placed in each planter. I tried to create different textures using different plates and tiles at the bottom of the planters, and then had a variety of plant types at different sizes. In between the planters, I have 2 benches that are currently built in 2 different styles. Right now, I'm leaning towards the dual tone one with black, but I want to get your feedback as well. Let me know in the comments below which one do you prefer, bench type 1 or bench type 2. I also added trash cans in between the 2 benches and light posts to illuminate the space. Finally, I activated the space by having someone reading on the bench, someone selling popcorn, and someone else walking their dog. I really enjoyed putting this park together, and building and designing the different plant elements was definitely my favorite part. In working on this city, I've actually paid way more attention than ever before on the LEGO City line. It's always been something I've enjoyed, but not necessarily regularly purchased. However, I really wanted to incorporate elements from a few sets into this video. The first one is set 60386 Recycling Truck. Not only does this set include this amazing garbage truck, but also this adorable little area with 3 designated garbage bins for recycling, compost, and trash. I also really like the minifigures that come with this set. Therefore, right next to the park, I thought it would be a perfect place for a trash collection area. I removed the plate the set originally comes with and placed it on a Mills plate to match everything else. I added the similar tile pattern that I used for the park area and then added a few of these black rail pieces to frame in the area. After activating the area with a few minifigures going about their business, this was a great way to expand my city using a set that I really like. Finally, for the last few spots on this side of the city, I decided that a temporary construction site made the most sense for now. I didn't want to spend too long in this area because it's really just a placeholder for future custom builds. Therefore, I did something similar to the trash collection area and took parts and pieces from other LEGO sets to make up a larger construction site. The sets I'm using here are 60391 Construction Trucks and Wrecking Ball Crane that came out in 2023 and set 60325 Cement Mixer Truck that came out in 2022. These sets are so fun and I imagine would be much loved by its intended audience of 4 and up. However, as a 38-year-old, I find them to be the perfect kits for setting up a construction site in my city. I built the 3 Mills plates necessary and then used plenty of these yellow railing pieces that we found on the pad wall not too long ago to create a barrier for safety around the site. I built up a couple of the corner areas with some masonry and more basic bricks to give a semblance of a demolition site. Even though the construction site, or demolition site if you will, is temporary and a bit crude, it serves its purpose and brings another dynamic area to my small city. Those are all the updates for today's video. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below and if there's anything in specific you would like to see me tackle next. If you like these types of videos, there are plenty more to check out on the channel, including my latest video, which was a departure from the tiny buildings with a much larger Animal Crossing Island mock. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.